Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. I hope you enjoy. Story number 1, Terran Cyber Warfare, written by Theme Galza. The galactic community as a whole is comprised of specialists in one form or another, and these are telling of the worlds they come from. The Govel make excellent hulls, renowned for their damage absorption, hailing from a small planet, often peppered with asteroids. The Ival produce shield that have been recorded to stop Mark IV beam cannon fire, having come from a system with massive solar flares on a regular basis. We, the Termau, pride ourselves on our engines. We were the fastest race to hit FTL, after all. This is a result of our cradle world having a heavy metal core and huge gravitational pull. Several other races hold lesser, yet still useful technologies, such as the Marvel and their medical nanites. These things, when shared, allowed us to build a great federation that should have been unbreakable. Yet broken, we nearly were. When the race calling themselves the Masters of All, the Cash Vault, came from the dark space, we thought them a new friend. We were wrong, and they were indeed mighty. Having studied us from beyond the veil of the darkness, they had counters for our every move. Govel hulls were bypassed by short burst EMP attacks. Ival shields became overloaded under Mark 7 ionized torpedoes. Our own engines were halted in their tracks by closing off and blockading hyperlanes. They even had a specialty designed combat routine for countering hunt troll tactics. The hunt troll! Those savages hadn't even left their world yet, for Alda's sake. So, understandably, when we found the humans by chance, we didn't expect much. First contact showed they had remarkable senses, and they could communicate across half the galaxy, even without FTL. But nothing else of note that could sway the war. They were friendly, at least, so we took them for as simple explorers, content to send out drones into the inky black and observe from the comfort of home. After the casual scouting party wiped out both first contact crews, we found the humans' resolve to be unyielding. They promised us aid. Them, a small, single-system race, was offering us aid. Oh, how far we had fallen. But we were desperate by then. All of us were on our last legs and grasping for hope, even if it meant seeking help from children. We had no choice. What the humans sent surprised us. There was no secret fleet, no hidden armada beyond the veil, not even technology we couldn't replicate. They sent us a drone, a single craft, barely an antenna with an engine. But oh, what it did. It jumped through the rudimentary attempt at FTL towards the Cashwell primary fleet, hailing them, wanting communication. How human, we would later say. The enemy at this point had taken our worlds, crushed our resolve, and almost robbed us of hope. And yet the humans wanted to talk. Well, they did more than talk. The Cashwell commander mocked what he called an attempt at asking for mercy. He promised to burn Earth last, that they could watch us burn and know despair. The drone broadcast a message after this, simple and short. Surrender and be forgiven. Naturally, the order was given and the drone was destroyed, yet not before releasing a signal that we could not at the time decipher. A signal that went on to do a great thing. Any casual ship that heard it simply shut down. All systems crippled, all weapons useless. And then the humans spoke over every channel and every frequency in the galaxy. Go home. And they did. The whole fleet turned around and dropped back into dark space. Sometime later, a new broadcast hit the galaxy. A world we did not know in a system that was unfamiliar. But the fleet we could see, that we knew. And the humans were clearly in control still. Small shots peppered the planet's surface before yet one last message. Surrender and be spared. End of story. Story number 2. Forged, written by Squirrel Bay. Human ambassador Evan Krast carefully ascended the steps towards the dais, trusting to his stick and his memory to guide him. 40 years had passed, but although his sight had been cruelly taken from him, every facet of the hallway was etched keenly into his mind. It had, after all, been the last thing he had ever looked upon before his vision and his life had been plunged into darkness. He clenched the stick with white-knuckled strength, using it to make his way up the steps onto the platform, where he knew they would be watching his struggles with sadistic pleasure. The suffering of a lesser species had always amused the Forged. Evan stumbled as he struggled to maintain balance on stumped feet. His toes had blackened, withered, and died from the frostbite he had acquired, hauling goods through the tundras of those forged in the ice. He wheezed through lungs scarred from the impure air of the factories of those forged in the void. His good hand continued to grip his stick firmly, and the other flapped uselessly at his side, a punishment delivered by an overseer of those forged in the sand for the crime of succumbing to a blistering heat in their desert. With each step, the dull ache of 1,000 old wounds reminded him of a lifetime that he had spent in their servitude, performing the tasks their biology prevented them from. He had been whipped and flayed, beaten and starved, but he had never broken. Instead, his will and defiance had grown stronger. His body had been battered and ruined, but his mind and resolve were as of steel. He limped steadily upwards, the memories continuing to savage his mind. Humanity, a species that could have survived, albeit with difficulty, in any environment, had been unheard of for the Forged. Trapped on their home planet by the confines of their own biology, the discovery of humanity had represented an extraordinary opportunity for expansion and wealth for these three allied races. He had been the first to meet them. He had stood before them in this very chamber, filled with hope of a burgeoning relationship. They had crushed his hope as quickly as they had crushed Albion's meager defenses, and the entire planet had been set to slavery. He reached the top step. The ground flattened, and his stick clattered against the rail, letting him know that he had arrived on the platform where he had excitedly, hopefully addressed them so many years before. The same spot where his eyes had been put out. He could picture them leering down at them from their balconies. Each species' representatives would be lounging in their custom habitat they so desperately needed for their survival.
"Speak quickly, human,"
an arrogant voice blasted through the speakers.
"We tire of your hobbling. The Council has matters to discuss that are far more important than the entreaties of chattel. You will be allowed 2 of your minutes to address the Council."
Anger flushed through Eben. Steadying his nerves, he was the voice of millions. He gazed up to the voice with milky eyes and began to speak softly. "For most of my lifetime, humanity has toiled under the heel of the Forged. Where you are confined to the boundaries of your evolution, we have been forced to work in your place. We toil for you where you cannot, or will not. The labors of our species have made you fat, whilst human children fight and die for your scraps. Our adaptability, once our strength, has become our shackle." His anger grew, strengthening his voice, and hand clasping his stick shook with rage and adrenaline. "For millennia, we dreamt of meeting others to share the universe with. We sought you out and offered you our strength so that we might all share in this bounty. But your greed and decadence caused you to reach out and snatch what we would have offered freely." He heard what passed for laughter amongst the 3 species, and an amused voice spoke.
"We took that which you could not defend. Our ancestors were forged by the brutality of our homeworlds. Your home, Albion, was a garden paradise. It is the right of the strong to take from the weak. You should be thankful to us. One day you may be strengthened by the hardships we forced you to endure."
"Albion was never our home. You mistook our humbleness for frailty. We were too few to resist you, but we have kept ourselves busy. Our true home was Earth, and now Earth has come to reclaim its children." Silence from the Forged. In the distance, Evan could hear the sirens and confused shouting. His heart leapt. "You take such pride in the suffering of your ancestors, but you did not realize that we too were forged. On Earth, humanity was forged in ice and cold, bitter enough to freeze the ice forged in its sleep. We eked out a living in the sands more scalding than the sand forged has felt. We tamed the void in our infancy, and soared the skies gleefully at speeds that would tear the void forged to pieces. We faced more hardships on our homeworld than your 3 species combined. And then we voluntarily put ourselves through more. There is nothing you have done to us that in our history we have not already done to ourselves. Slavery, genocide, above all else, conflict has forged us. He could hear the sirens in the distance now. The representatives of the council were shouting with fear and alarm, demanding to know what was happening. The unmistakable thrum of a human dreadnought entering subspace above the station caused Eben to laugh aloud. He slowly began to unscrew the top of his stick, maintaining his vice-like grip that he had kept on the top, and let the shaft fall to the ground. Above the din, Eben's voice thundered. "This," he said, holding the stick aloft, "is the trigger to a thermonuclear warhead that we have painstakingly hidden within the station. There are many others placed strategically within your empires. It has taken us decades, my life's work." He had their full attention now. "Don't bother shooting me. When my finger is removed from this button, it'll instantly detonate, killing every being on the station." He could hear their fear, sense their terror. His only remaining regret was that he could not see the looks on their faces. "We are those forged in war, and we are coming for you." He released his grip on the stick, and the last thing the Forge Council saw was his satisfied smile. End of story. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon WRE, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.